Hello, good night. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I am here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions, and tonight I have a great topic to talk to you about. It's going to be the income requirements to sponsor your relative for permanent residence in the United States. I get this question often, and it's my parent wants to sponsor me, my spouse wants to sponsor me. Do they have to be working? How much do they have to make to sponsor me? So the answer is your relative does not have to necessarily be working, but they do have to find someone to show. So if they're not working and they're not making an income, or they can't meet the income requirements to sponsor the relative, what they will need to do is find a co-sponsor who can submit the evidence and the documentation to show that they do meet the income requirements to help to support you as the immigrant if you were to come to the United States. Now, this is through the affidavit of support. It's usually part of the application process at some point, whether you're here and you're applying for status while staying in the United States, or whether you are in your home country and you're going to be going through the consular processing, meaning that you're going to attend the interview at the embassy to get your permanent residence. The affidavit of support, let's start with the adjustment of status process. At the point that you're filing for adjustment of status, the affidavit of support form is required at the same time. And it is also called the I-864 form. This form, it requests information about your income, about your income, your yearly income, and whether or not you have filed your taxes. And there is required evidence that you have to attach to that as well. Now, keep in mind, I'm here to answer your questions. So I will be talking, and sometimes I will stop to answer other questions, and your questions does not have to be related to the topic that I'm talking about. So here I have what to do after I receive my welcome letter. I'm a child under 21 of a US citizen. So it depends. No, I don't know where you are and what kind of welcome letter you're receiving. If you are receiving it from the National Visa Center, then they're going to give you further instructions on what to do. Usually at the point that your petition has been approved and it's moved to the National Visa Center, they will then send you an invoice for the immigrant application fee. They'll also send you an invoice for the affidavit of support fee. However, T-tapping, I don't know what's going on in your case. If you've received a welcome letter and you are the son or daughter of a US citizen and you're under 21, you should be processed as the child of a US citizen. And so they usually, once it's sent to the National Visa Center, they usually start to process the case by sending the invoice for both the immigrant application as well as the affidavit of support. But I don't know what kind of welcome letter you received. That's where getting a personal consultation is going to be very important. T-tapping, the stakes are high at this point. And you definitely, while this is great information for you, you definitely don't want to be taking any action on your case based on a live show. Because remember that while I'm giving you good information, it is not personal legal advice and it is not tailored specifically for you. The advice I would give regarding what your next step should be would be based on what I have learned in particular about your case and how you answer my questions. So T-tapping, the stakes are high here, so don't gamble. Make sure that you get personal legal advice about how to move forward in your case. Is the interview for the fiance visa hard? So you should never underestimate any of these interviews. The officer, now, is it hard? It depends on your perspective. It should not be hard because while it might be nerve-wracking, it should not be hard just because if you are in a real relationship with your fiance, you're going to be able to answer the questions about your relationship. However, other aspects of your application may be hard, and that's where you'll need to get legal representation. For example, if there are legal implications that you haven't identified or that you have to grapple with, such as a possible inadmissibility, if you have past criminal issues, if you have past immigration violations, an officer may have questions about those, and if it's not answered, if you don't know how to address those questions, it may lead to a misunderstanding, or it may lead the officer to deny you if you don't answer it properly. So I would say it just depends on what your case is, what's going on in your particular case, what are the facts in your case. After the fiancé visa interview, how long does it take for the spouse to arrive in the US? So, but now keep in mind that if it's a fiancé visa interview, they shouldn't be your spouse. At the point that they're your spouse, they either have to be coming in on a K3 visa, or they're coming in on an immigrant visa. So that's the first thing. But if you do get a the fiancé visa, then it depends on how long they take to process your passport, to put the visa in there, to send you the package to be able to travel to the United States. So could be a matter of weeks and could be months. Also, there is a time limit on your visa. And so you want to make sure you are mindful of that going forward. I want to remind you here that I'm also on YouTube. I'm here to answer your questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the comments. I will answer. And thanks so much for the love. I appreciate it greatly. Now, if if you have other people in mind that you'd like to share this information with, you can share the videos with them, share the lives as we're doing the lives, or you can share the lives on YouTube. This is good information, and it's valuable information coming directly from a U.S. immigration attorney. And so, it's empowering information that can help other people through their immigration journey as well. Let's see. All right, so I have been talking about the affidavit of support. This has to do with whether or not you're going to meet the income requirements in order to sponsor a relative, or if you're the immigrant, to be sponsored. Now, your petitioner or the petitioner does not have to be working. Basco, thanks so much. They don't have to be working. But that does not mean that it exempts you from showing that you have met the income requirements through a co-sponsor. So if you don't make sufficient income, or you're not working at all, then the next thing you'll have to do is make sure that you find a co-sponsor. Co-sponsor could be a relative, it could be a friend, it could be someone who is willing to put themselves forward and put themselves out there and show their income, that they will assist with supporting you if you're the immigrant in the United States, if necessary. And this is usually if necessary. This isn't mandatory support. It's a type of it is meant to stop the immigrant from having to depend on public benefits. So that's the main goal of the affidavit of support here. So I have a trip to PR for a friend's wedding, but I have not received my new permanent residence. Can I go? So I wouldn't be able to advise you just because I don't know what your situation is. Usually when I have my clients and they are going to leave the mainland, Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States, and And so it's not necessarily considered traveling outside of the United States, but anytime you leave the mainland, I definitely would want to review your case to make sure that it is advisable that you get on a plane and travel anywhere. I wouldn't be able to advise you, but I noticed you said here that you haven't gotten your new permanent residence yet. That's telling me that you're already a permanent resident, but that you're waiting for the renewed one. I don't know if you're going from a 2-year to a 10-year, or if you have gone 10 years and now you're renewing to another 10-year. If you do have an extension and it's valid and there are no other concerning issues, that extension is evidence that you're a permanent resident, and you would be able to travel with that extension outside of the United States. What kind of documents can I use for a supportive affidavit? So it depends on how do you make your income. The most common form of income is you get the pay stub from an employer and you get a W-2 statement at the end of the tax year. And so those would be good evidence. So usually they want at least 6 months worth of pay stubs attached to the affidavit of support, as well as your tax returns in the past, the most recent tax year. So those are important pieces of evidence. And if you don't attach your tax return, they will send a request for evidence for you to submit your tax documents or an explanation as to why you haven't filed your taxes. Is it true that all USCIS visa is postponed until 2023? So no, that's not true. But what is happening, DOMS, is that there are backlogs. So people are finding that they're waiting a very long time. Now, DOMS, I don't know if you're referring to the Jamaican embassy and handing out visas there through the embassy. And right now, I am seeing that there is visas are backed up till 2023. All right, so the affidavit of support, it's going to be important. Where there is an affidavit of where income requirements are and you're not exempt from an affidavit of support, you will not be approved for permanent residence without it. So very important that you plan how you're going to prove that you can meet the income requirements in your case. So Peter James, my interview was canceled today, for which I don't know. Is there a reason to panic? I wouldn't be able to tell you that. Unfortunately, I can't give you any information that could offer you some comfort. It could be for any reason, but keep in mind, it's all going to come down to what's going on in your case. But usually if they've canceled your interview, we're going through a pandemic right now and we're going through a spike. That might be something that they have considered, but at the same time, it may be something in your particular case. I wouldn't be able to tell you, but it really depends on the facts. I wouldn't panic though. I wouldn't panic, but you can definitely get in touch with the USCIS. If it's the USCIS, I don't know, or the embassy, and try to find out there what's going on with your case. One of my friends is here with a B1, B2 visa and they overstayed. How can they have legal rights in the USA? So it's going to depend on a number of circumstances in their case. Some people, they overstay and they don't have any direct access to permanent residence, because you do have to qualify through an employer, through a family member, through humanitarian means like asylum. And so if none of those options are available, sometimes it does mean that the person who overstayed is dead in the water. But what I can say here is that your friend needs to get consultation. If they're at a point where they've overstayed, they cannot leave, they need to make sure that they empower themselves with the information they need and the legal advice they need to understand what what they're looking forward to in the United States, whether there is a way to qualify for them, or whether is anything they can do to fix their situation. Okay, so Gabby, it's a 10-year renewal. So if you've received your extension letter, then that extension letter is just as good as a permanent resident. You just have to carry the extension letter with your permanent resident card and travel. But Gabby, with that, that's just general information. I don't know your case, and I don't know if there's anything else concerning in your case. But generally, one can travel with that extension letter and the permanent resident card. Now, if you have not gotten the extension letter yet, or it's expired, you can always call the USCIS and see if you can get an emergency appointment to get a stamp, an I-551 stamp in your passport. That will show that you're a permanent resident. So can I sponsor for the affidavit of support? And if so, can I use anyone to sponsor the fiance? So Jadori, that's getting very specific, and it's going to depend here. I would have to, oh, so Marcel's, it's nice to see you. And yes, so that's nice that I'm seeing you here. That's so funny. Our house was near you guys. So that is awesome that I'm seeing someone from Jupiter, where I used to live. It's nice to see you here. Happy New Year. Doms, thanks for sharing the live. Is there still a brother and sister sponsorship? So Bright Sky, yes, there is. But it's taking a very long time. So it is taking 14 years at minimum for the Caribbean, and it could go as long as 22 years in Mexico. It's nice to see you too, Marshall. All right. So Jador Arabia, what you're getting very specific here, and so you should get legal advice, especially at the point that you're ready to file this application. Get legal advice. Don't gamble your future with your fiance away doing it on your own. What I was thinking about is, and this was after one of those painful consultations where someone submitted their application and then everything went south and it was denied. What I thought to myself is, why would anybody go ahead and risk their future in the United States like that? And that's what I would say to you here. If you are ready to go ahead and file, getting your information off of the live is not going to necessarily be helpful. This is general information and it's not legal advice. So make sure that if you have very specific questions to you, like this one, you should get legal advice and representation through your process. Now, before I head out, because time keeps running out on me on these lives, and I'm heading on over to Instagram. So I have a live there. So if you want to hop on over to the live and watch me there, then you can go ahead and do that. But what I do want to talk about are those income requirements. You know, when I'm talking about the amount that a relative will need to be making per year to sponsor their relative, right before I say the amount, I often see my clients holding their breath. And that's because some people think, oh my gosh, am I going to have to be making an enormous amount of money to sponsor my relative? And keep in mind that one, if you're not working, you can always find a co-sponsor who's willing to step in to show their income. And then two, it's not as bad as you may think it is. So I have here, if you go to the I-864 664P form on uscis.gov. You can see this chart for yourself. But in the 48 states and the territories, if the petitioner is living in those states, for a household of 2, if the petitioner is a military member, then it's $17,420 per year that they'll have to be making. And if they're not a military member, then it's 20, in a household of 2, then it's 21,775. Marshall, I will definitely. They'll be so excited to hear from you. And thanks for saying hello. Now, if you are in a household of 3 and you are a military member, you'll have to be making 21,960. And if you're not a military member, as in the petitioner, and you're in a household of 3, that's going to include the immigrant, it's 27,450 per year that you'll have to be making. I'm going to skip to a household of 6. If you're in a household of 6 people, you are a military member, then the income requirement is going to be 35,580. If you are not in the military, as in the petitioner, and you're in a household of 6, then it's going to be 44,475 for a household of 6. So now Alaska is different. So you can look at that chart. It's the I-864P form, and it's going to give you the chart for the 48 states and territories, and also for Alaska, which is different. Alaska is a little more, it has more an increased requirement. For example, in Alaska, for a household of 2, if you're a military member, it's 21,770. If you're not a military member and you're living in Alaska, it's 27,212. So you can go ahead, visit the uscis.gov, go to forms and scroll down to I-864P form, and you will be able to see that there. All right, so I'm heading on over to Instagram now. I will also be on Facebook at ST Law Office. Go ahead and join me there. You're welcome to join me there. Christina, I see that you put 60,000, but I didn't see the rest of your question. So if you have any additional questions, go ahead and put it in the comments on YouTube and I'll answer. If you're talking about the affidavit of support and 60,000 is your income, it depends on your household size. So you can go to the I-864P form to verify how much income you or your relative will have to be making. So have a great night, Marshall. Now, I'm going to head on over to Instagram. If you'd like to schedule a consultation to get personal legal advice, highly recommend you do that, especially if you are ready and set to get started on your case. Go to the link in my bio. You can click on the button to schedule your own appointment. You can click on the Instagram button, or you can also, if you want to join me in a minute, or you can also go to the website. There's a scheduling coordinator who's available up until 11 p.m. Eastern time tonight to take your call, schedule your consultation. You can also explore the website. You will see web form where you fill out the contact form at your convenience. There's online chat right now. Any of those are going to lead you to the scheduling coordinator. So have a great night. I hope to see you in a minute on Instagram or on Facebook at ST Law Office. Or I'll see you in a consultation. Hopefully you're ready to get started and we'll be talking in that consultation. Have a great night.